Hey guys, tonight we're going to take a gentle, thoughtful journey back in time, to a world so different from our own, yet connected to us in ways we might not expect. Imagine for a moment that you're walking through a quiet village, the soft glow of candlelight spilling from tiny windows, the cobblestone streets cool beneath your feet. The air is still, wrapped in a peaceful hush, and yet, beneath that calm, there is a story that has been whispered in silence for centuries, a story of women whose voices were often unheard, whose choices were taken away, especially when it came to their own bodies. Tonight, I want to tell you about the Middle Ages, a time when the world looked very different, but the struggle for a woman's autonomy was very real. It was a time when marriage wasn't about love or mutual respect, but about contracts, property, and power. Where the word no was rarely an option for women, especially in matters of sex. You might wonder, how could a simple word no be so difficult to say? Why would any woman be denied the right to refuse? These are questions we will explore gently tonight, through the stories of women who lived in a time when saying no could mean losing everything. Take a deep breath now and settle into your bed, letting the quiet of the night wrap around you like a soft blanket as you breathe slowly. Imagine the stone walls of medieval homes, the flicker of firelight casting long shadows, the gentle murmur of prayers rising from a distant chapel. In this world, a young woman named Eleanor is preparing for a life she never chose. She is told she will marry a man she barely knows, a union arranged by her family, sealed not with love, but with duty. Eleanor's body will no longer be hers alone. Under the law, she becomes her husband's possession, expected to fulfill what was called the marital debt, a promise written not just by law, but by religion, teaching that a wife's refusal was a sin against God. This wasn't just a cruel law. It was a system built on centuries of belief, enforced by the church, by families, by society itself. Virginity was precious, guarded as a treasure, controlled by fathers and priests alike. Losing it outside marriage could destroy a woman's future, closing doors to security, respect, and survival. But even in such a harsh world, women like Eleanor found small ways to resist. Some disguised themselves as men, slipping into forbidden roles. Others sought refuge in convents, places of both confinement and unexpected freedom. Some formed secret networks of solidarity, whispering courage to one another in hidden corners. And many endured, surviving with quiet strength and resilience. Tonight, as you close your eyes, I invite you to walk softly in Eleanor's shoes, to feel her hopes, fears, and courage. This story is more than history. It is a window into the past, a mirror reflecting struggles still faced today. It is a tribute to the women who dared to hold on to their voices in a world determined to silence them. So, as your breath slows and your body sinks deeper into comfort, imagine the soft footsteps of a young woman walking through the halls of her medieval home, standing at the crossroads of fear and hope. And as you drift off to sleep, let her story, and the stories of countless women like her, be carried gently on the quiet night breeze. As you settle deeper into your space tonight, imagine yourself, once again stepping softly into that quiet, medieval village. The night air is cool, and the faint scent of wood smoke lingers, carried gently on the breeze. Inside a modest stone cottage, a young woman named Eleanor sits quietly by the fire. Her fingers trace the worn edges of a small wooden box, a keepsake from her mother, but her thoughts are far away. Eleanor knows that soon she will be leaving this home, not by choice, but because her family has arranged a marriage for her. Marriage in the Middle Ages was very different from what many of us know today. It was not about love or romance. Instead, it was a contract, a serious agreement between families, often involving land, money, and alliances. For women, marriage meant a profound change, not just in their daily life, but in their very identity. You see, under a law known as once a woman married, her legal existence was effectively erased. She became one with her husband, her property, her rights. Even her voice now belonged to him. This was not just an idea, but a binding reality. Eleanor's name would no longer appear on documents. Her money and possessions would become her husband's. She would be expected to obey his commands, and above all, to fulfill her duties as his wife. One of those duties was known as the marital debt. It meant that a wife was obliged to be sexually available to her husband whenever he demanded. Refusal was not an option. To say no was not only disobedient, but was considered sinful and rebellious against both man and God. Imagine how heavy this burden felt for women like Eleanor, caught in a system that claimed their bodies as property, their voices silenced by law and faith. The church played a central role in enforcing this system. It taught that marriage was a sacred union ordained by God, and that wives had a duty to submit to their husbands. The refusal of a wife to fulfill her husband's wishes was seen as a spiritual crime, a rebellion against divine order, even when a woman felt fear, pain, or simply did not want to. Her consent was never truly considered. Eleanor listens carefully to the advice of older women in her village. Some warn her to accept her fate quietly, others whisper of the dangers in resisting. They speak of women who tried to say no, only to face harsh punishments, public humiliation, or worse. The law itself offered little protection. Ecclesiastical courts, run by male clergy, often sided with husbands, viewing complaints by wives as challenges to social order rather than genuine grievances. This meant that women lived in a constant state of vulnerability, their bodies and wills controlled by men, their options limited. As you breathe in slowly now, feel the weight of this reality. Imagine Eleanor's heart, caught between fear and hope. But life in the Middle Ages was not just about hardship. It was also about survival, resilience, and the quiet ways in which women found to assert their humanity. Some women used cleverness and courage to protect themselves, finding ways to delay, to negotiate, or to seek help in secret. Others looked to the convent, a place of both confinement and surprising freedom. Some chose the life of a nun to escape the control of husbands or fathers, finding solace in prayer, learning, and a community of women. Still, the law remained clear. Marriage was a contract of property and obedience, and a woman's refusal to fulfill her marital duties was not tolerated. Imagine Eleanor preparing for her wedding day, her heart pounding as she walks down the narrow village lane, flanked by neighbors and family. Her future is uncertain, her autonomy taken, but inside her burns a quiet strength. The story of marriage and virtue is one that many women lived, trapped in a system that denied their right to say no, but never fully able to extinguish their spirit. Now, as your eyes grow heavier and your body relaxes more deeply, let this scene fade gently, like a candle's dying flame. Eleanor's story will continue, weaving through the struggles and subtle resistances of medieval women, and as you drift deeper into rest, remember, even in the darkest times, the human spirit finds ways to shine. As you settle further into the calm of the night, imagine the gentle sounds of a medieval village settling down to sleep. The soft rustle of leaves, the distant bark of a dog, the quiet footsteps of a woman moving carefully through the shadows. Tonight, let's step closer into a world where a woman's body was not just her own, but a precious treasure, fiercely guarded by family and faith. For girls like Eleanor, growing up in the Middle Ages meant learning early that virginity was more than a personal matter. It was a symbol of honor, a form of social currency, and, most importantly, a kind of property. Her mother watches over her closely, reminding her of the importance of preserving her purity. In this world, virginity is tied to the family's reputation and future. It is an asset, almost like land or money, that can be used to create alliances through marriage. Losing it outside of marriage, even by force, could ruin a girl's prospects, bringing shame not just on herself but on her entire family. You might wonder, How could something so personal be controlled by others? How could a young girl's body be treated like an object? The answer lies in the deep intertwining of law, religion, and culture. Families took great pains to protect their daughters' virginity. They used strict rules and supervision, sometimes even locking girls away or arranging early marriages to control when and how it would be lost. The church played a crucial role in this control. It taught that virginity was a sacred gift and that sexual activity outside marriage was sinful. But the church's teachings went beyond spirituality. They reinforced the idea that a woman's value depended on her purity, making virginity a kind of economic and social capital. Imagine Eleanor as a young girl, learning to hide her curiosity and guard her innocence. She knows that her body is watched, that her future depends on keeping this fragile treasure safe. This obsession with virginity reveals how deeply women's bodies were commodified, not as individuals with choices, but as assets to be traded, controlled, and owned. Now, as you breathe slowly and deeply, imagine the invisible chains wrapped around Eleanor's life, the expectations, the fear, the pressure to conform. But even in this tightly controlled world, women found ways to resist, sometimes in small acts of defiance, sometimes in quiet rebellion. Some whispered secrets to trusted friends. Some sought comfort in stories and songs that hinted at other possibilities. Others endured in silence, waiting for moments when they could claim just a little space for themselves. The control of virginity was a powerful force, but it was not absolute. Picture the village marketplace bustling with people, the chatter of merchants and customers filling the air. Amid them, Eleanor's mother watches carefully, her eyes sharp for any sign of impropriety. The fear of losing honor weighs heavily on her shoulders, for in this world, honor and shame could dictate the course of a life. Women's bodies became battlegrounds where families, religious leaders, and society at large fought to maintain power and control. The loss of virginity outside the right circumstances was not only a personal tragedy, but a social disaster. It could lead to isolation, gossip, and even legal punishment. And yet, as you breathe gently now, let your mind soften and imagine the resilience of these women. Eleanor's story is just one thread in a vast tapestry of lives shaped by these forces, lives that found moments of light even in shadows. Their strength was often quiet, their resistance subtle, but it was real. As your eyelids grow heavier, let the story of virginity as property fade softly into the night. Remember that behind every rule, every law, every expectation, there were women who dreamed, hoped, and found ways to endure. As the night deepens and your breath grows slow and steady, imagine Eleanor's world once more, a place of shadows and flickering candlelight, where every whispered word carries weight and every glance holds meaning. Though the system around her seems unbreakable, with laws and faith binding women tightly, there are moments, small and fragile, where resistance takes root. You might wonder, what happened when a woman dared to say no, when she refused to obey, when she chose to stand her ground? For many, the consequences were harsh. Some women who resisted were sent to convents. At first, these places might seem like safe havens, quiet, serene homes filled with prayer and learning. But often, convents were prisons in disguise. Women were forced into strict obedience, cloistered from the world, and bound by rules that left little room for personal freedom. Imagine Eleanor hearing the stories of women who were taken away, their hopes and dreams locked behind heavy doors. Some never left. Others faced darker fates. Witchcraft accusations became a terrifying weapon to silence women who defied the social order. A woman who resisted her husband or questioned the church risked being labeled a witch, accused of dark magic and evil deeds. Such accusations could lead to public trials, torture, and even death. The fear of these punishments kept many women silent, hiding their pain and fear deep inside. Ecclesiastical courts, run by male clergy, were supposed to offer justice, but often reinforced the very patriarchy that oppressed women. Complaints of abuse or coercion were frequently dismissed, viewed as disruptions to social order rather than legitimate grievances. But even under this pressure, women found ways to resist, sometimes quietly, sometimes boldly. Some used feigned illness to avoid unwanted encounters. Others sent secret messages or confided in trusted friends, creating webs of support that helped them endure. Some women sought spiritual rebellion, making secret vows or prayers that gave them strength and a sense of agency within a world that denied it. These acts of resistance were often invisible to the wider world, erased from official records, but they mattered deeply. Imagine Eleanor, learning from these stories, feeling a quiet fire grow inside her, a hope that even in chains, freedom could be found in small acts of defiance. Take a deep breath now and feel the resilience of these women, their courage to resist, to survive, to hope. Though their voices were often silenced, their spirits whispered through time, carrying lessons of strength and endurance. As your body relaxes deeper into rest, imagine the world beyond Eleanor's village, the courts, the convents, the dark alleys where whispered stories of rebellion and courage lived, and know that resistance, no matter how small, was a seed of change. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, carry with you the quiet power of women who refused to be broken, whose courage still echoes softly through the centuries. As you sink further into comfort tonight, imagine stepping out of the quiet village and into the bustling streets of a medieval town. The sounds here are different, merchants calling out their wares, children laughing, horses clattering along cobblestone roads. But even in this lively place, women's lives are shaped by strict rules and difficult choices. Meet Margaret, a woman living in the heart of the town. Unlike Eleanor, Margaret is not bound by marriage, but by the harsh realities of survival. In medieval towns, some women found ways to earn money, working as market sellers, seamstresses, or in other trades. Yet, for many, economic independence was fragile and came at a high cost. Prostitution, though often condemned by society and the church, was a reality for many women who had few options. Margaret walks the dimly lit streets at night, wary of guards and neighbors who judge her harshly. Though she earns her living this way, Margaret's freedom is limited. The law controls her body, subjecting her to constant surveillance and exploitation. Consent is complicated here, a word that means little when survival depends on selling oneself. Despite the dangers, some women like Margaret find a measure of power in their work. They navigate a world of risks, but also moments of control. Imagine the conflicting feelings she experiences: fear and strength, shame and pride, danger and independence. The church condemns her, society shuns her, but Margaret survives. In this way, urban women lived complex lives, caught between oppression and autonomy. Now, picture a market square at dawn. Women gather to sell their goods, exchanging news, sharing stories, and quietly supporting one another. These connections form a lifeline, small networks of solidarity in a harsh world. Though their lives are constrained, these women carve out spaces for friendship, survival, and sometimes even resistance. Take a deep breath now and feel the complexity of Margaret's world, a place where freedom is fragile but fiercely sought. As you relax more deeply, imagine the city's winding streets fading into soft shadows, carrying the stories of women who lived, worked, and resisted within them. As you breathe slowly and deeply, imagine the medieval world once again, not just as a place of rules and control, but as a space where women found clever and courageous ways to resist. Picture Eleanor, or perhaps another woman named Isolde, who dares to challenge the limits placed upon her. Isolde cuts her hair short, slips on men's clothes, and steps into a new identity. Disguised as a man, she walks more freely through the streets, works in trades forbidden to women, and escapes dangers that once threatened her. Cross-dressing was a risky choice. Discovery could bring severe punishment, yet it offered a taste of freedom otherwise denied. Imagine the thrill and fear mingling as Isolde moves through the world unseen, claiming spaces reserved for men. Beyond disguises, women also formed secret networks, invisible webs of support, wisdom, and hope. In quiet corners of villages and cities, women gathered to share stories, advice, and strength. They passed messages through coded letters, whispered prayers, and hidden symbols. These networks became lifelines, a way to resist isolation, protect one another, and preserve knowledge. Even in the darkest times, these connections sparked hope. Imagine Eleanor hearing whispers of these secret communities, feeling less alone and more empowered to survive. These acts of resistance, though often invisible to history, remind us of the courage it takes to hold on to autonomy when the world seems determined to take it away. As you settle deeper into rest, feel the quiet power of these women, their creativity, their bravery, their refusal to be silenced. Let your breath slow, your body soften, and your mind drift on the wings of their stories as you settle even deeper into comfort. Imagine the gentle flicker of torchlight in the grand halls and humble homes of the Middle Ages. Here, stories were told, not just in words, but in music, paintings, and poems, shaping how people saw the world around them. In this world, art and culture played a powerful role in shaping ideas about love, power, and consent. Songs were sung of brave knights courting reluctant maidens, of men overcoming a woman's no with persistence and charm. Paintings often showed women as prizes, objects to be won by valor and strength. These stories, though romanticized, normalized a dangerous idea that female refusal was merely a challenge to be overcome, not a boundary to be respected. Imagine Eleanor hearing these songs at village festivals, the melodies sweet but the message clear. Saying no was part of the game, something to be gently ignored or persuaded away. This cultural backdrop made it harder for women to claim their right to consent, embedding these norms deep into everyday life. Take a slow, calming breath now, and picture the brushstrokes of medieval painters, the verses of troubadours, the notes of minstrels, all shaping the world's view of women's bodies and wills. Though these stories were captivating, they also helped justify a system where women's no was not truly heard. Yet beneath these tales, real women lived, loved, resisted, and dreamed. As you breathe out slowly, let the colors of this medieval world fade softly, carrying the echoes of art and music that both constrained and inspired. And remember, every story has many layers, some that hide truths beneath beauty,